And we are going to jump right in today because I have a returning special guest, Jack Fox, the human lie detector of never a truer word. Jack, welcome to the Outlier. Welcome back, I should say.
No, thank you for having me back.
Of course, of course. People were fascinated with your statement analysis with some of the witnesses, Jennifer McCabe, Brian Albert. And I mean, I'm fascinated by it. I think I repeated what you said to other people so many times. And I did, I gave you credit. But it's just been so fascinating. So I wanted to jump on with you and go beyond Michael Proctor's vile words. I want to go beyond that, right? We don't need to analyze the nasty stuff he said. I think go ahead.
it talks for itself. The nasty stuff really talks for itself, right? It's indefensible to talk about anyone that way. The guy's a disgrace to his job,
Yeah.
a disgrace to his community, and a disgrace to the justice that's being sought here. So, but there is more to what he said.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. My headphone's getting tangled in my earring right now as we speak. real time podcasting, you guys. It's really fun. But no, you're absolutely right. We don't need to spend time on that. We don't need to analyze that because number one, it does get awkward to listen to. I mean, when I had to hear Alan Jackson say leaky balloon knot 20 times, I'm like, okay, I get
it. I've got to tell you, Lauren, I was on a train this morning reading through my notes that I've got for this, and leaky balloon knot is written on the page, and I was embarrassed to have those words in front of me while people were around me. That's how I felt about those words. But apparently, it's all right to say that about a woman in his
my
world.
gosh. And I've stated this. I don't think of myself as super naive, but I've never heard that. I'm actually from New England. I mean, we're really good at insulting people. We're really good at dragging people, but I'm like, that was a new one. And just quickly, for anyone who thinks that Proctor's actions don't make Karen quote unquote innocent or guilty, you're right in a way, sure. But what's happening now is that no matter how you feel, and I'll say this because my parents, they don't necessarily pay attention to every detail of this, but they did hear that and they just said, oh, I mean, this is gonna get her completely off because it just looks like he's not credible. He has no integrity when doing this investigation. And now we're hearing that he was the lead investigator on the Brian Walsh case, accused of murdering his wife. And Brian Walsh's lawyers are filing a motion about Proctor because look what's going on.
Well, you would, wouldn't you? I think it's entirely possible that Karen Read could be guilty, and Michael Proctor did a shockingly awful investigation. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying one doesn't rule the other one out.
Right.
But he has behaved so badly that you cannot help but think that has harmed any prosecution case that wants to be made.
Yeah, I think I tweeted that yesterday. I was like, pretty much everybody that Michael Proctor has locked up, they are going to be calling their attorneys. They're going to be, I need you to look through this, look through that. There was a detective in New York City, Lou Scarcella. Have you heard of him?
No, I haven't. No.
He was busted in the 90s for coercing confessions. And they figured this out. And essentially every single case and every single person that he put away, they were granted a new trial. So, I mean, this stuff, it has repercussions.
Really serious repercussions. And I think that when we go through some of the things that Proctor said, that's actually, in my view, quite right, because I don't think he's a straight up police officer.
Right. And I want to get into something he said after the fact. This was after he was cross-examined and Lally had a chance to come back and speak to him. And I think I might have DM'd you about this, but listen, he was on the stand a long time. Maybe he was tired, but his words did not make sense. He essentially was describing why he thought Karen was guilty, and he was sighing and he had these major pauses. And at one point he said the shoe matched the vehicle. Again, that could be you caught that. Yeah. It could be nothing. Yeah. I've said, things that I didn't mean to say live as well on live hits. I totally have, but I was like, well, wait a second. Yeah. What do you make of that?
Look, for me, I would have to say I would file that under slip because We all make mistakes, like you say,
Yeah.
especially when we're under pressure. And when we're under pressure, our words don't come in real time in our head. We're thinking about what's the perfect word to use. And he may have been thinking ahead to talking about the vehicle whilst the words about shoes were coming out of his mouth. And then shoe becomes, or shoe match the other shoe becomes vehicle. So I'll never pull someone up on just one data point alone, but just going through what he talked about and the way he talked about it, I have so many issues with what he's spoken about.
Go on. Go on.
Well, this
The
was
floor is
so.
open.
This is it's really hard to do statement analysis in real time. So as you're talking to me, I'm not going, why has Lauren chosen that word? Because you're involved in a conversation. Even when you're watching testimony, I'll learn a lot more by going back and digging the words out and looking at them. But as I was watching him under direct with the prosecutor, he was asked, when a cell phone is seized from a person, what, if anything, do you do in regards to that cell phone to preserve the information of? And he says, well, the first thing we do is put it in airplane mode. So he said the first thing we do is put it in airplane mode. So he's ordering the steps that he takes here. He's telling us he's ordering the steps. And then we give it to a cell phone expert in our office, Trooper Nicholas Garino. And he essentially tries to access the data in the phone once a search warrant is obtained. Now, that search warrant part came at the end. And if he's telling an order, we secure the phone, we put it in airplane mode, get a search warrant, and then we give it to this guy who's going to download all the data. But that's not the order he said it in. And that made me go, oh, is this guy straight up, or is he just getting everything from the phone? And then when the search warrant comes in, he feels he can use it or bring it into evidence. But is he taking shortcuts here? Or are the department taking shortcuts here? Look, that's a one data point, but the way he said that was really interesting.
I'm just going to add to that because Peter Hyatt always says order is important. You just nailed it. He is very much into that order. If you killed someone and you're saying, well, I feel bad, my pain is I have all this pain because I did this and I feel bad for the person's family, you're putting yourself first, and that's the order. Yeah.
Yes, exactly that. It's why has it come in that order? Often when someone's telling a story that they've made up, you'll find them jumping around in order because what they're about to say they realize doesn't make sense because they haven't told a part of the lie that would make this new bit of the lie make sense. So, it will be, and so we walked into the bar. Oh, but I must remember when I got out of the car, I put my wallet in my pocket. Anyway, so we got into the bar and it's like, right, you're jumping around in timeline. And when people are telling you, I could tell you about my trip today. And I got on the train, sat down with my notes. The train was a little bit delayed. So lots of people got on the train and it was really noisy. The train arrived 20 minutes late and I got off, right? I wouldn't have to do it. I got off. Oh, but the train was really noisy. That's just not how you tell stories.
Absolutely.
There was another one when he was asked by the prosecution, what, if any, damage did you observe on the driver's side rear area of the vehicle? So this is about examining John's car with the thought that Karen may have hit it. His reply was, I didn't observe any significant damage or any damage.
What?
What?
Wait, what? Yeah.
I didn't observe any significant damage. Well, if he left it at that, he would have observed damage. It just wasn't significant.
Right.
And then he says, or any damage. So I was like, again, could be a misspeak, but he should have said, actually, no damage at all, like cleared it up rather than just adding more vagueness in there. So, I think that was
absolutely
when I was watching it, I'm going,
so you saw this in real time and you actually were like, okay, even though you said you don't like to analyze, this jumped out so obviously to you. You're saying
yes, there's a couple of things that will jump out at me as someone's talking, really easy things to spot, like ordering, and go, ooh, what's going on here? And then when I've dug deeper into some of the things he's said, then I just really didn't like it. And also what was really interesting about this testimony was we got to hear the texts he was sending. So those were right for analysis as well. There's the one on, someone saying the homeowner's going to get a lot of crap for this. And his reply was, nope.
Yeah.
The homeowner is a Boston cop too. The first word was nope. That's a very definite, this is not going to happen. It wasn't, I doubt it, or I hope not, or we'll see. It was no. And no, when someone says no as an answer, it's very definite. And he gives a reason for saying no, which is the homeowner is a Boston cop too. And that was interesting. And he was asked then, what, if anything, did you mean, or what was the purpose of that text? He says, I was just letting him know that essentially Mr. O'Keefe is a Boston cop and the homeowner was a Boston cop as well. Well, that's not the purpose of the text, was it? Do you know,
No, yeah.
wasn't. What I found really interesting, by the way, about Proctor was there are reasonable excuses for some of his behavior. When I was saying reasonable excuses, like what he
Yeah.
said was not right,
Hmm.
but it was only in day 2 that he started saying, my frustrations got the better of me because of what had gone on. You know, actually, if he went, look, I take the killing of policemen really, really seriously. One of my own, I was highly stressed in trying to find this person, and sometimes my thoughts and my emotions got the better of me. But he
Hmm.
never ever said that. He sought
No,
to minimize everything that happened, and I thought that was very telling. Often, the most interesting things that in statements are the things that are not said, and he tried to give no
you're
reasons
right.
for what he said.
And that's what people have been actually saying, that who defend him. They're saying, well, he thought he killed her, or Karen killed a police officer, so he was saying these vile things about her, but he never said what you said. Oh, I was just so upset. He never said that once. And let's be honest, he's had 2 years to stew on this and to possibly prepare for this. And just adding to what you said about the police officer statement, nope, he's a Boston cop too. I mean, that's not why he shouldn't get shit. He shouldn't
Yeah,
get shit because he had nothing to do with it. So
well,
that would be my answer.
in I think it was a text to either his sister or one of his friends.
Yes.
He says, from all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. That's talking about Brian Albert. From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. So
This is
that means he's only basing this on what people have said,
yes.
not based on any evidentiary knowledge that he has, or
Counts.
beyond what people have told him.
You're
From
right.
all accounts,
Wow.
he didn't do anything wrong. Which is yeah. I thought the way he tried to explain away his comments, did you notice he used the word regrettable a lot? These were
Yes.
regrettable. What does regrettable mean? It means able to be regretted, or deserving regret is the actual physical dictionary definition of it. That doesn't actually say regret. He didn't once say, I regret those comments. He said they were regrettable. So a bit of a distance there between actual regretting the comments.
Put that together. That's wow. That's fascinating. Okay.
Um, he also, when he talks about them, he said unprofessional a lot about the comments. They were
Yeah.
unprofessional.
Hmm.
And if you look at how he explains away these things,
Yeah.
his concern about what he said is the impact on his job,
Yes.
not on himself, how it reflects on him as a person. And I
Hmm.
didn't get in his words any sense that him as a person regretted his actions and his behavior. He regretted writing it down. He's
Yes.
never once regretted thinking it or acting like that. We've all done things, we've all acted in ways where we go, I acted really badly there. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
That was just wrong. But no, he never expresses anything like that. He talks about the rest of the unprofessional and regrettable, which we've spoken about, comments are
Hmm.
something I'm not proud of, and I shouldn't have wrote in a private or any type of setting. So he's regretting actually making the comments, not
Hmm.
the thought process or the person or the brain pattern that caused someone to say vile things about this woman. Let me tell you, Karen Reid, in my view, if nothing else, she was drink driving that night, and that's a real no-no in my book. So it's really
Hmm.
hard for anyone to make me feel sympathy for Karen Reid. But seeing her sitting there with what was being said behind her back about her medical conditions or her state of mind or anything like that,
Yeah.
I did feel a certain amount of sympathy, because that shouldn't happen.
It's funny. You that actually kind of gave me chills just a bit, because it was, if it was awkward for us to sit there and listen to that, imagine the jury, in real time listening to those horrible things said. And Joe Jackalone brought this up the other day. He's like, aren't these HIPAA laws that he's violating? Also, how does he know so much about her? I've been wondering this from the start. How does he know all this? If they don't,
I've seen people
yeah,
say, like, how does he know about her medical conditions?
yes,
Like, where did that come from? Um,
right.
I've got some more on going through Karen's phone,
Oh, yes,
and
yes.
the nudes.
Mm.
Now, this is really interesting because at some point in the conversation with Alan Jackson, the defense attorney, Alan Jackson says to him, "You told your friends you were searching for nudes, right?"
Yeah.
Now, to be fair to Michael Proctor, he did not tell his friends he was searching for nudes. He said he hadn't seen any nudes. He said
No.
no nudes so far. Now,
Right.
you speak to any policeman or attorneys who have access to phones, and funnily enough, seeing nude pictures on phones is not an uncommon occurrence. If you just get all the data there, right? It's up to
Mm-hmm.
you what you do with it. Do you be professional and just go, this is nothing to do with the investigation? Or maybe it tells you about what the person is like or something like that, but it's not
Yeah.
an uncommon occurrence. Now, Proctor could have said, no, I didn't say I was searching for nudes. It's well known in the police that when you have to go through a phone forensically, you may well see nudes on that person's phone. And that's what I meant by that comment. It's something that we know as part of the job. I understand how it seems, but really I wasn't searching for nudes. I was commenting that they weren't there, but he didn't go there at all. He just tried to
Yep.
really minimize it. So even when it was put to him, you said you were searching for nudes. He didn't go, I didn't. I said I hadn't seen any nudes yet. But the fact he mentions it shows it's in his priority list in his head, seeing the nudes of that might be on this phone.
Right. Right.
And he's asked to explain this, and he said, I was mostly interested in location data, text messages, Google searches. So he qualifies it. He doesn't say, oh, I wasn't looking on the phone for nudes. I was looking for location data, text messages, and Google searches. He says, I was mostly, which just opens the door for he was interested in other things that were on that phone.
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then he talks about, and on your last podcast with Kirk, you
Yeah.
touched on this about Kirk said, I don't believe he didn't read the messages from the attorney.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
exactly.
let's back that up, Kirk.
Yeah.
He says, I wasn't able to go through the phone as thoroughly as possible because I came across some text between an attorney and Miss Reed, so I had to stop. So it wasn't I came across messages or a message chain or a conversation.
Yeah.
It was some messages. So he knew how many messages there were, if you know what I mean. Like he is in there in his
Yes.
words, he's quantifying the messages that are there. It wasn't just I saw there was a conversation between Miss Reed and her attorney, therefore I had to stop the search. It's I came across some messages, and that means he at least knows the quantity of messages that were there. He's describing them as a quantity rather than as a single entity that he's not allowed to look at, which is attorney client conversation.
So do you think that kind of hints that he possibly did go in and see and read?
Well, right.
Based on that statement. I mean, you don't have to, this is your opinion.
Well,
but based on the way he described that, you're saying like, well, yeah, you didn't stop. He
was going through his phone, yeah. Sorry, going through Karen's phone.
Right.
As far as I understand, it wasn't like a data dump or anything like that,
No,
right?
yeah.
So when I open up my phone, I see the name of the person that the text messages are for and have to click through to see a conversation. So if I've got a phone in front of me that I don't know, I know there is a message. So if I see the word Yannetti on the phone, I know there is a message or potentially a conversation, but some texts, you only know that when you click down and in that there are a stream of texts and not just one message that's unanswered or, like a,
that's a good
see you at
point.
2:00. Okay. He knew there were some texts.
So you could see David Yannetti's name, let's say on the iPhone, on the, your text message chart or whatever you want to call it, but you have to actually open it up if you're going to acknowledge that there are either some messages, one message, many messages. Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Got it.
So yeah, I think he did have a good old look at them. And again, later on, he said, no, I stated I was most interested in Miss Reed's location data, text communications, Google searches, things of that nature, more evidence contained in the phone. So what he's saying there, again, he doesn't specifically say he's looking for nudes, but he's trying to narrow our attention down to the three things that he was looking for: location data, text messages, and the Google searches. And trying to narrow our attention down there, saying I was more interested in them, but he was interested in other things on her phone, which yeah. So I get more from him aside from the vile comments that just suggest to me that this is not a guy who was doing a fully ethical, by the book investigation. And even worse, I think, is that he was prepared to tell other people that that is how he was acting.
Yeah, and let's not forget, on day one, he told his buddies, or maybe it was his it was his high school buddies. He told them there was overwhelming evidence to charge her. And yeah, that was huge on day one. And he didn't even go to the crime scene. That was the best part, where it's like, how is there overwhelming evidence if you didn't go to the crime scene? Again, I'm just confused at a lot of this.
Yes, there is one where he talks about that with the prosecutor that I found that was very, very interesting. Let me just find it here. It's all around the putting pressure on the medical examiner, which I'll talk about that.
Yes.
But he is asked at the end of that, the determination of the medical examiner, so the unexplained determination they came to, is put to him. The determination didn't matter. Sorry, it's put to him that it didn't matter. You probably already decided to charge Miss Reed with murder anyway, right? Is the question that's put to him by Jackson. The first word of his answer is, yeah. You'd already decided to charge Miss Reed with murder anyway, right? And he says, yeah. The determination doesn't matter as we continued on with the investigation. Now, that in statement analysis, when someone's asked a question, you can answer with yes or no. We consider it a really reliable answer if they start with yes or no at going to what the question is, and the further on the yes or no becomes in the answer, the less reliable it becomes, because eventually someone's going, I'm going to put some explanation and some deviation and so on. Yes, or da. No. The earlier it comes, the more reliable it is. And we usually use that for like detecting truth, So if you ask me, is your birthday in December? Yeah, my birthday's in December. Right. There you go. Yeah, straight away, it's the truth. Okay. Well, it's just put to him with that. And he just answers with, yeah. He does, say the determination didn't matter as we continued on with the investigation. So he does qualify the yeah a bit, but his instinctive reply to, already decided to charge her with murder was yeah.
Wow, I did not catch that at all.
It's how this guy was on the stand for ages, right? So it's just impossible to talk with intention and choose every single word really carefully for that long amount of time. It's hard, tiring work. It taxes your brain a hell of a lot. I think, I'm not saying he's lying all the time. I think actually he tells the truth a lot of the time. It's just the truth is not great.
Right.
But lying takes up more brain power than actually telling the truth. Lying is more tiring than telling the truth. So things will start to seep out. And even though you don't want to be reactive, you want to think about your words and parse what you're going to say and qualify what you're going to say. At times, your instincts just kick in and you will give out a yeah.
But that's interesting. You say that it takes a lot more effort to lie and come up with different words and different phrasing if you maybe have something to hide. And once again, I don't know what he has to hide exactly, but judging from a lot of these statements, it could be withholding information. And if you're genuine like that, you're up there and you're just telling it like it is, you're not going to care, right? You're not going to have it show on your face how much you're affected by this.
Telling the truth is really simple and easy. Telling the truth as you know it is really simple and easy.
Yeah.
That therefore makes your words really straightforward. Yeah, my birthday's in December, right? You could not get more straightforward. Yes, agreement. So we're talking about me, birthday, what we're talking about, December, when it is, right? And that's the format that you look for in a straightforward, truthful answer. Lying, no, my birthday's not in December. It's June, right? And I'll have a whole thought process around why I chose June, because maybe I've said I'm a summer baby or something like that. So I've got to then pick a month or something. It's hard,
and you're stressed about it. Now, how am I gonna play this one? Exactly.
Just on the medical examiner, by the way, he's asked, and this is, I'm going to say something in his favor here. Okay. Were you displeased by the undetermined finding? And his answer is no, right? As I've spoken about, that's quite a firm answer. And he doesn't try and explain it or equivocate it, qualify it away. He just says no.
Hmm.
Then he's asked, would you rather have had a determined finding that it was homicide? And then his reply is, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to my office. We still investigate the exact same way if it's ruled determined, undetermined, or homicide. So he's gone from talking, or he's asked a question about himself. Would you rather have had a determined finding? And he answers about his office and we. It doesn't matter to my office. We still investigate the same way. And it's a general answer. It's not specific about that case. So I think
Right.
that his defense mechanism here is to talk about protocol and process and how things should be done. And he knows how things should be done, but he's jumping away. And my question would be, why can't he just answer about that case? Why can he not talk honestly about the case that he's dealing with and just give very straight answers? Why does he have to take it from talking about that case to talking about things in the general terms?
Is that distancing to you, or is
It's
that
distance.
it is, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's definitely distancing, and it's really taken the conversation down a very different track. The conversation that he's being asked about is the
Hmm.
medical examiner's determination on the cause of death of John O'Keefe,
Right.
and he's just talking in general. He does another one with it, with further on later. Um, just let me find it.
Oh, take your time. This is like I said, I'm on the edge of my seat. I just don't pick up on this as much, and I think I'm getting
But
better with statements. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much to learn.
yeah, no, he really just jumps into the generals that are there, and he's asked about the message about busting his chops. And he says he's asked by Alan Jackson a question along the lines of, it was your job, you didn't meet the standard of getting the medical examiner to change her mind, right? That's what he was busting your chops about. Okay, so this is a question about him
Yeah.
on that day with that medical examiner. And he gives a long pause. Okay, sometimes the most interesting things are the things that are not said. So, and
Yes.
then he stutters, and he stutters, what we would never try to change the mind of a medical examiner. The doctor who conducts the autopsy often has questions. They want to know some of the facts, what had transpired leading up to a victim's death. It happens not only in homicides, but in the unintended deaths we also attend to, suicide, overdose. So it's common to have those questions with doctors. So once again, he's asked, was he busting your chops because you did not change the medical examiner's mind? And he says, oh, we don't try and do that. We don't try and do that. Not even him. He doesn't say, I don't try and change a medical examiner's mind. Sometimes they want some facts from me and I let them know what's going on, but I don't try and change their mind. I just tell them what I know. No, he just talks in general about we and doctors and a victim, not John O'Keefe or anything like that. So he
Yeah.
is very sensitive around
Wow. Wow. And
the
that's more
medical examiner questionnaire.
distancing
Yeah,
as well. Just
yeah.
we, not me. We, it's not me. It's
Yes,
everybody.
he's
Yeah.
taken no ownership, and
Mm-mm.
this guy. I try and be fair when I'm doing this. I kind of like give people the benefit of the doubt because
Sure.
quite often it's quite serious. This guy does not deserve any benefit of the doubt, and he has taken no ownership of not trying to influence the medical examiner. He hasn't. He's talked
Right.
about we every time. He has not said I did not try to influence the medical examiner. Those words did not come out of his mouth. And if someone hasn't said it, we should give
Uh,
them the benefit of the doubt and go, oh, that's probably what they meant, because they didn't say
and
that.
some of the other witnesses did say that or they would answer absolutely not, or
Oh my,
they would say no, I did not. And you're right, he never does that. He never does
every
that.
every
Yeah.
single sensitive question he was
Yeah.
asked, absolutely not was his answer.
Yeah. Right. So why not with that? Absolutely not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's just, it was real. And I often say when someone says absolutely not, that's not a synonym for no. No means no. It's a very defined word, right? Absolutely not is like a need to convince that this didn't happen.
Oh,
And we have
that's
to ask,
interesting. Okay.
yep,
Yeah.
well, we have to ask why the need to convince. And for him, to be fair, you're under a lot of pressure. You really have to get across to everyone that these things didn't happen. So maybe that's why you're going, absolutely not.
The other
like,
witnesses too, they said that a lot.
oh yeah,
Absolutely not.
absolutely
Jennifer
not
McCabe
is,
said it many times.
yes.
Absolutely not. Trying to convince us, or it's true. Yeah, who
Yeah,
knows?
I mean, they are working hard to
Yes.
convince us of what they're saying, and we have to. We can't find the answer, unfortunately, but we have to ask the
Mhm.
question: why are they working hard to convince us? Why can't you? Is your birthday in November? No,
Yeah.
it's not. Right?
Right.
Absolutely not. That why would I be trying to work
Hmm.
really hard to persuade you that my birthday isn't in November? It's a question, and the more questions that come up from statements and people like this, the more I'm going, now I don't like what's happening here. There's too many
Yeah.
indicators of what is going on. I think another thing is um, what someone jokes about quite often reveals their true feelings on something. If we may well, I don't know if we've all had the friend, but that friend that talks about cheating on a night out, or like something
Yes.
like that. And it's funny, like, so that they're off and they're going, oh, I'm going to find me another guy tonight or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that will be the friend that cheats on the night out, eventually.
Yes.
What we joke about gives our true thoughts, because we have to concoct the joke from somewhere. It has to be
Yep.
somewhere in our mind for it to fire the synapses and make us go, oh, there's a joke I can make. And so the comments he made, like repeatedly calling her a whack job, I think really lets us know what his thoughts on Karen Reid are.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
whack job, whack job, whack job, retarded. That
Over and over.
really,
Hmm.
really is what he thought Karen Reid was, and he's let that out in, as he says, puerile, juvenile messages. But he's giving us an indication of his state of mind. And even if it was bravado for the lads, it still has to come from somewhere inside us. We still have to have those thoughts for it to come out, and I believe that's what was happening with him there.
Can I ask you about something that I picked up on and I didn't see a lot of people talking about this, so maybe it wasn't a thing, but I was just like, I feel like he just got caught in a lie. But they asked him about the night that he went out drinking with Kevin Albert, and Alan Jackson is accusing him, and he's saying, this was 2 years ago, or he said the date was 2 years ago, and Proctor says, I don't remember. And I'm thinking, okay, that's very fair. I don't remember a night that I went out with somebody 2 years ago. Totally get that. And then all of a sudden he says, well, his badge was in your car, his gun was in your car, or whatever it was. And he says, oh, okay. Then all of a sudden he has his explanation. We were working a case in Cape Cod, and this is what happened. And I'm just like, so just say that from the start. If you don't go out with him often enough, this would be something that you recall, because you were in Sandwich, Massachusetts, a few hours away, and you were with someone that you're not with very often. You knew exactly what he was talking about, because you don't go out that often. That would have helped you say, oh no, I remember, because I barely go out with him. This is the one time. So, I mean, it was almost just like he gave himself away right
Yeah,
to,
so
to me, to me. Yeah.
he did this a lot through the trial, or through the testimony, which was he took a question and kind of pulled it apart so he could
Mm-hmm.
give the least damning evidence. So I can't remember that um, section particularly, but I believe it was something like there was a specific date put on it. And so he
Yeah.
decided, instead of saying, I remember going out with him in, March or whatever it was, so it could have been that one. He was like, I can't remember. Meaning the definition he's using in his head is, I cannot remember the date, therefore I'm not going to testify that it happened. And he
Okay.
did that a lot, where he takes the question. There was the one that was actually a grand jury bit of testimony that was read to him, where it
Mm-hmm.
was, do you know or have a relationship with these people? And he he would not cede on it whatsoever, but he was saying no to some because he didn't have a relationship. He knew them, but he decided it was no and have a relationship, not no or have a relationship. And he was, again, taking the question, rebuilding it in his head, so he's got all the definitions that he understands,
Mm-hmm.
and then giving the
Yes.
least damning answer that he could come up with. And the way he dealt with questions, there is a training video there for people who have any cause to interview people, not necessarily in court, but
Yeah. Yeah.
if you are interviewing someone, for a job. at work, if you're hiring or something like that, there's a training video to be made out of how he broke down questions and answered only certain parts of questions. And it was, there is so much that you could learn from just looking at this guy. Again, he
Wow.
felt
Wow.
to me like he was very practiced at that. So maybe this isn't
Yeah.
his first rodeo in, getting the old deceptive language out there.
Wow. That's so interesting. I mean, I guess I don't understand why they continue to minimize these relationships. If they're not a big deal, then just be honest about it. If it's not a big deal, stop minimizing it and then getting caught 5 minutes later with, we want to get your wife a gift, or sorry, we want to get you a gift. No, get it for my wife. And I'll tell you, Jack, I think that might be one of the most damning things about this, because, and again, it was revealed that he never got a gift, his wife never got a gift, but the fact that he was willing to entertain this, that is what is the most damning about the rest of his investigations to me, is that
Yeah.
he's texting about possible bribes. And again, this bribe never happened, but he's open to it, clearly very open
Yeah.
to it.
And also seems to be
Yeah.
quite happy to have it on the record.
Yeah.
Not what I do in life is a way less sensitive than investigating homicides. And I am uber sensitive about making sure that whatever I write online, whether that's in an email or a text conversation or anything like that, knowing full well it may well be seen by other people at some point. So
Right.
just making sure that it's right. There's a classic when you talk about the relationships. He's asked,
Yeah.
how is it that you know Julie Albert, Christopher Albert, and Colin? And he starts his answer with the word so. When someone starts an answer with the word so, it means there's not so much an answer coming up, but an explanation, like a reason for things. So my sister
Mm.
Courtney, her friend growing up, Gillian's sister Julie, my sister got to know Julie Albert. Julie Dean was her maiden name through her friend Gillian. Julie married Chris Albert, so my sister got to know Chris through Gillian and Julie. And 5 years down the road, my sister had Julie babysit my nephew. Julie would come time to time and pick up my nephew from school. So that's how I kind of became friendly. And on occasion, they would be over to my sister's house or at my parents' house backyard. And Julie and Chris and their kid Colin, and I would happen to be there.
That's a
What?
huge explanation for just it. Yeah. I mean, what? I didn't even follow half of that.
No, just kidding. I know my sister's friendly with Julie and her sister, and I know them through that.
Yeah. Who cares about the rest? Who cares?
It's just he was trying to minimize it. He was trying to turn every touch point down to, years down the road. Sometimes would babysit, time to time would pick up my nephew. I would happen to be there. Now, the number of times I've seen happen to be there around some of these coincidences
Yeah.
and
Right.
testimony at this trial is really funny. Why not just say they were there? Yeah, I was there. But
Right.
they have to put in the happen to be there, which makes it chance.
And let's not forget, during Julie Albert's testimony, I believe it was stated that they had 67 phone calls back and forth between Courtney Proctor and Julie Albert. I believe, don't quote me on that, I could be wrong about that, but it was a lot of phone calls, really showing that those two are close. And if your sister's close friend is involved in an investigation, a homicide investigation, most likely, I mean, yeah, I can see where you'd probably want to protect them and not admit it.
Yeah, it's I just don't know. No, I do know. But it's just not a great look. And when you use answers like that, when you parse the question and don't answer the question fully, people pick up on it. Whether they pick up on it and really see what's happened, or whether they just have a feeling inside them of that answer didn't satisfy my curiosity, or
Yeah.
I don't feel like the question's been answered. People pick up on this stuff, and it's not worth doing in life. It's not worth doing in a trial at all. Why not just answer? And I think he could have gone through that in a much, much better way. I still don't think that really there'd be a lot of integrity left in the investigation with some of the things that came out. But he could have come out with a lot more, just not appearing so deceptive, because he really tried to dodge and jump so many of the questions.
I mean, I even thought about this. I imagine I have to think this would have been a home run with the jury here. Imagine he took accountability and responsibility for what he said about Karen Reed, and he looked at her directly and said, "Miss Reed, I am so sorry for what I said. that was awful of me. I mean, think about, the jury would have been like, wow, he really is sorry that he took this awkward moment. He took all of this awkwardness, this shame, and he looked directly at her and said, I'm sorry. I would have been like, okay, he is sorry. He's
Yeah.
very sorry.
I mean,
And his credibility may have gone slightly up to me, slightly, maybe. I don't
yeah.
know, but
Oh, it's sorriness, regret, not really not in his mind whatsoever, apart from the fact that he wrote the things and he put them in messages. So don't think he's the greatest thinker in the world whatsoever, but in his head, he is not sorry for thinking those things.
no.
He is not sorry for that. Now, like I said, he could have explained some of that away by going, I was furious at this woman because I knew through the evidence what she had done to a fellow police officer, and I take those things very, very personally. But he didn't. He started to say that on day 2 of his testimony, as if someone had said, "Mate."
Yes, someone brought it up to him. Right.
Yeah,
Right. No,
you,
absolutely.
you need to get out here a little bit. But when you look at even if he said that, the language that he uses when he talks about it, they're just regrettable and unprofessional. I'm sorry I made them, but sorry for myself. You know that he never ever looks and talks about the impact of his behavior on other people, whether that's getting his colleagues involved in it,
Yeah.
like
Right.
or on how the investigation looks, what it did for John O'Keefe, or anything like that. He doesn't get any of that across
And where
whatsoever.
is his outrage for a fellow officer? Where are the other cops' outrage? I mean, the language that he used about Officer O'Keefe, she waffled him. That's super disrespectful for, I guess, it's fresh. This just happened. I mean, and people have spread these text messages where I guess Karen said they left him to die like roadkill, and people are, oh, she called him roadkill. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. I don't know exactly how I feel about that, but I wasn't offended in a way. But would I say that about my husband? They left him to die. I don't think I would, actually. Saying that out loud, I
Well,
don't think I would refer to my husband, even if I was referring to somebody else doing it. And I don't know if you'd feel the same about your wife, but I don't think, or someone I love. Would I call them
yeah,
road? Yeah, I don't know.
no,
I don't think so.
roadkill
No.
was one of those comments that made me go, hmm.
Yeah.
However, I have not picked up in anyone that's been a witness in this trial, so far from the Trooper Proctor,
Yeah.
Alberts, McCabe's. I haven't picked up any great like for them for John O'Keefe.
Yeah,
I
I
know
know.
they weren't all that close to
Yeah.
him. It was a peripheral figure in their world.
Carrie Roberts
But
seemed to be she seemed to genuinely.
yeah,
I think that's one that
I,
I was like, she likes him.
yes,
Yeah, but
she was closer
yes.
there. They all talk about respecting him because of what he did with the niece and nephew, but that's respect for an action rather than Brian Albert spent quite a bit of time with him in the before
Yeah.
two consecutive weekends before he died,
Yeah.
and there is no sense of that he really enjoyed spending time with him, or that he felt John O'Keefe brought something to his life, or anything like that. Now, that's not me for a second saying they all hated him and that's
I
what
know.
happened.
I know. I
What it
know.
is I think there's a very complex dynamic of relations going on here, which is what Trooper Proctor does
Hmm.
not, like you said, point out for a second that he was fueled by rage that a policeman had been killed, or um, fired up by wanting to get justice for this poor guy at the side of the road. And that's my job. I serve the community and I want to
Hmm.
get the person that did this to one of my own. None of that came across at all.
I felt a bit like when Brian Higgins was on the stand, I felt like he was getting teary eyed when I think he was reading some of the texts between he and John about playing Xbox with his nephew or something. And I did see him get a bit teary eyed. However, I think a lot of that stems from guilt, that John has now passed away and he seemed to have this side relationship. Maybe it wasn't sexual with Karen, but it was obviously inappropriate to the point that he feels guilt about it. And now he's crying on the stand. And that's where I kind of took that. I'm like, see, this guy, he feels really bad about the entire thing. Not necessarily that he's so close with John that he cares, but he's just like, wow, I feel like a piece of shit throughout all this.
Yeah. But Brian Higgins came across to me as very human, not a robot. I know there was
Yes.
some issues around some of the things he was talking about, but he did sit there and come across to me like a person. He when he was talking, did he talk about, was it, I can't remember, but either he's divorced or never married and had no kids or
Divorced.
something, or
Yeah.
divorced, right?
Divorced. Hmm.
He was talking about his life like it was fully open, that there wasn't any closed boxes or anything like this. This is me. I'm a cop.
Yeah.
I'm divorced. So this is how my life stacks up.
I
This is
felt
what my life
sorry for
is.
him. I felt really sorry for him. I just like he just was I can't put my finger on it. I don't necessarily think any sort of way about him, except the whole butt dial thing I thought was weird. And the whole destroying of the phone, throwing it in a dumpster was weird. Just put it in a drawer like the rest of us. Why are you
Well,
doing that?
doesn't Trooper Proctor wish that he'd destroyed his phone
Yeah.
or traded it in? And potentially, is that why Higgins and Alberts got rid of the phone? Not because there was too much incriminating things about John O'Keefe there, but they're police officers, and there is a culture within the police of these off-color messages, or potentially messages that show that they haven't followed process, or have not been always been fair in investigations or so on. This is speculation, by the way. I'm not accusing any of these guys of that.
I
But
know. Yes.
when you see what happened to Trooper Proctor, I bet he
Yeah.
wishes that he'd gone to a
He did.
military site with his phone.
Right. And Higgins thought in his mind that if he pulled the text between him and Karen and said, "Oh, here you go. I saved these for you because I did the right thing. I'm law enforcement. I know what goes on." Well, not quite, buddy. Not quite. I mean, you partially did the right thing here, but yeah, that was another interesting nuance to this. But yeah, again, it makes you just wonder here where it's like I'm not pushing anything. I'm just you're really not making me feel very confident that one thing or another happened conclusively.
Yeah, it's and the world that this has opened up is
Hmm.
just so fascinating to me as someone who's interested in human behavior, and having gone through, I'm so certain of specific things that have happened in this
Yeah.
trial. Proctor's investigation was sloppy.
Hmm.
The way he carried it out, the way he documented it was awful. There are the butt dials. They're not butt dials.
No.
I've been
Yeah.
watching, but since those come up, I have not made any butt dials because I've been counting how many butt dials I have made on my phones. None, right? So
Same.
they
Same. Unless
eight,
my kid takes it. My kid makes all the butt dials. That's literally how it goes. That's it. Not me. Yeah.
8 in 2 hours, or 8 or 9 in 2 hours, when someone was found dead on or unconscious
Oh,
on a
and
lawn.
Jen McCabe, 6 of them in the house. Remember
Yeah,
John's phone 6 times, six
yeah.
butt dials. Got it. Okay.
So I don't know what it
Yeah.
means. I really don't know what it means, but there is something there. And I know for a fact that the Alberts and McCabe's are hiding and minimizing communication they have had. Again, I don't know what it means, but I know these things have gone on, and that's why it's so fascinating. Ultimately, someone somewhere knows the truth.
Yeah.
And
I
I'd
know.
love for that person to just say the truth. Or maybe there's more people. Maybe Karen knows exactly what happened to John, and the McCabe's know why they were all appear to be colluding and having all these phone calls and so on.
Yeah.
But doesn't it feel like the two things are connected in some way?
Something is not right. And you have to, I guess I don't have the balls to lie so blazingly. Like I just don't have that in me. So I think that I do like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I know we spoke about that, but it's like you've got two sides here that are up there so they're just so I didn't do this, I didn't do that, absolutely not. And it's like you wonder, you want to, and even Karen did some interviews outside of the courthouse yesterday when they said, "Oh, what do you think about John's DNA possibly being on the taillight?" And she said, "John's DNA is on John's clothes." I mean, that's what she said. That was her answer. So
Right.
meaning, and I know what she meant. I think she meant like John's clothes were in Proctor's car or wherever they were for till March. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
that.
right.
That's where I took that from. Like, hey, listen, that's what she's saying. She's not, that's it. John's clothes are on, or John's DNA is on his clothes. So who had his clothes?
And that's to go
Yeah.
back to the why we're here. Michael Proctor deserves that,
Yeah.
because he has opened himself up to
Hmm.
every allegation of improper investigation.
Yeah.
Um, and factually, things around the logging of evidence and the chain of custody and so on
I mean,
is
no
is
chain of
really
custody, zero.
outright.
Yeah.
Really outright.
Yeah.
So that's a
Hmm.
sloppy investigation. Then there is the views towards the witness, which are the witness and suspect, which are
Hmm.
documented. And then
Yes.
there's the things that I've noticed where I think he did have Karen in his sights and was blind to everything else. For whatever reason, I think there are signs that the Alberts were a protected species because they were cops, whether that is just they're cops, so they can't be the bad guys, or whether that is
Hmm.
we look after our own. He's opened himself up to all of that through his actions. Um,
Yes.
and ultimately, potentially, he could be getting whoever the killer is off
Yeah.
just through being a disgraceful person.
Right. And something Nancy Grace said yesterday on the panel, and I had made this comparison last week. I made the comparison between Proctor and Mark Furman. And I mean, I just didn't see how one couldn't make that comparison, and not necessarily about planting evidence per se, but just being a liar, being uncredible, not having integrity. Uh, People were very upset with me on one side about this comparison, and it's like Nancy said it. She basically said, we know OJ to be guilty, but I think Nancy's like, I think the jury did not convict him because of Mark Furman and they hated him so much. So she said, I could see that happening with Karen Reed here. They hate him so much and they think he did such a piss poor job that, yeah, she's walking, even though, I mean, they might think she did it. It's just it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. And I found that to be very interesting.
You're a juror. I mean, are you? I've been on juries, and for all you're like, oh, I'm going to
God,
be
you
on the
shouldn't be on a
jury.
jury. I'd be like, oh, I don't want that guy on a jury.
you, me and my fellow jurors, we took our responsibilities really seriously. It was
Yeah.
paying real attention to the evidence, paying real attention to the judge's instructions around the law and what it was that we needed to do. We took
Hmm.
it really, really seriously, right? So you're on that jury. Would you feel comfortable about condemning Karen Reed to a prison sentence, a life prison sentence, whatever that could be, even just to have the words killer,
Yeah.
attached to her for the
Yeah.
rest of her life,
Yeah.
based on a guy that goes around making jokes about her medical conditions, calling her a retard,
You're right.
degrading her by talking about the nudes on her phone and so on. That is not someone who is a serious person. That's not someone
Hmm.
that I would feel like going, actually, yeah, I know he's a bit of a oaf, but Karen's guilty. That's a hard thing to do, a really hard thing to do for someone.
So what do you think about the people that are saying, well, his behavior was terrible, but that doesn't make her any less guilty? Or
It's true.
that doesn't make, I mean, but like
That
what?
is
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
true. That his behavior was terrible. That doesn't change the facts. There's a point in it where he's basically accused of manipulating everything, and it goes, the investigation has integrity. My juvenile text does not change the
Well, that
facts.
that was a joke when he said that after with Lally, and like Alan Jackson just got done listing all the crap he said, and he's like, I had the utmost integrity when investigating this. I was like, I literally laughed out loud. I'm like, we just heard the language you used and how you told everybody that you had all this evidence on day one when you didn't even go to the crime scene. And I'm sorry, even as a journalist and a podcaster, that's like, hello, the number one rule. You can't make an assumption if something happened, at a crime scene or whatever, unless you actually go to it and you investigate there.
Yeah. So look, he's right. But a court and a trial it's not about the facts. It's about what can be proved.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's made it a hell of a lot harder to prove anything
Yeah.
because so much of what he says discovered has done will be taken